In the United States, a multitude of people are sentenced to death each year. This number should be zero, as the death penalty is unconstitutional and should be abolished. Currently, there are 31 states that allow the death penalty and 19 states with a ban on it. The death penalty is a punishment that is issued for only the most cruel and vicious crimes committed, such as murder, kidnapping, sexual assault of minors, etc. There are currently 2,800 people on death row, and oftentimes people feel that the only way for these people to pay for the crimes they have committed is through death. But in actuality, this is unjust and unconstitutional. Now, some may say that the death penalty is necessary and that death is the only punishment that can accommodate for such terrible crimes. Although some may believe that the death penalty is the only way to bring certain criminals to justice, the act of killing someone just for committing a crime directly violates the Eighth Amendment. The death penalty is unconstitutional and should be abolished, as it is in direct violation of the Eighth Amendment, which states that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. And this is where the problem with the death penalty comes from, as capital punishment can be considered cruel and unusual punishment. Now, while some people say that the death penalty does have its positives and that in some cases it can actually be a crime deterrent, this is not the case. Now, the Death Penalty Information Center, a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C., that focuses on disseminating studies and reports related to the death penalty by itself and others to news media and general public, states that a survey by the New York Times found that states without the death penalty have lower homicide rates than states with the death penalty. As stated, states without the death penalty actually have lower homicide rates. In 2016, states with a death penalty ban had 25% lower homicide rates than states with capital punishment. So, the idea that the death penalty is an incentive for people to not commit crimes is inaccurate. The death penalty does not even achieve one of its principal tasks that it's supposed to, and this furthermore adds to why it is flawed and unnecessary. The death penalty also has a giant flaw regarding the fairness of who even receives capital punishment. As the editorial board of the New York Times states, mental illness, intellectual disability, brain damage, childhood abuse or neglect, abysmal lawyers, minimal judicial review, a white victim, these factors are far more closely associated with who ends up getting executed. Of the 23 people put to death in 2017, all but 3 had at least one of these factors, according to the report. Problems with the death penalty are brought to light in this quote. Those issued the death penalty and put on death row often have mental problems, which are the catalyst promoting such crimes worthy of the death penalty to be committed in the first place. Therefore, this system is a form of punishment that is flawed as well as cruel. Not to excuse any crime that may have been committed, but it will be especially cruel to murder those who have mental handicaps, and this conflicts with the Eighth Amendment, which describes that cruel and unusual punishment are prohibited. There are some people who say that the death penalty is necessary as it has been around since the country's beginnings, but this is not the case. Radley Balko of the Huffington Post found that 33% of Americans support the death penalty and believe it to be a fair punishment. Most Americans support the death penalty out of a desire for vengeance and retribution. Those who still support the death penalty feel as though it is the only consequence that can atone for the crimes that may have been committed. But these feelings come from an irrational sense of justice that combats fire with fire. Frankly, supporters of the death penalty think those who kill deserve to be killed, and is a very backwards way of thinking. This way of thinking is a problem because there have even been people on death row who were falsely convicted. So if you insist on capital punishment being the solution before a case is even properly solved, someone will lose their life. And this is why the Eighth Amendment usually prohibits such punishments. But in the case of the death penalty, there are no such restrictions. Now, according to Amber Phillips, reporter for the Washington Post who covers Congress, state houses, and politics, and 2017 winner of the Best Political Blog Award, many conservatives are changing their opinion about the death penalty. In an article, Phillips states that, in Georgia, which led the nation in executions last year, Harrell agreed that there are more conservatives wary of the death penalty than those who publicly say so. When he acknowledged he had changed his mind about the death penalty, nearly a dozen of his Republican colleagues privately told him, "Good job, I believe the same thing." With the Eighth Amendment and capital punishment conflicting so evidently, even those who have openly supported the death penalty in the past have since changed their viewpoint on the topic, as they have realized that it is unconstitutional and overall immoral. With the growing number of states motioning to have the death penalty abolished completely, It is made very clear that the current system in place is flawed and needs to be changed, with the very law system that's supposed to be functioning within these laws opposes them. Just because the death penalty has been around since the America's beginnings doesn't mean that it's required to stay. Government should evolve with the times, and it is time for a change. Although it may seem as though the death penalty is a just punishment in some scenarios, in actuality it is quite unjust and directly violates the Constitution. A change is necessary and should come sooner rather than later, as more people are executed each year. And yes, while many Americans may feel as though the death penalty is necessary, there are a growing number of people who recognize that the death penalty is a cruel punishment and should be abolished. Rather than killing those who commit such horrible crimes and stooping to their level, a level of humanity should be preserved and these criminals should be imprisoned for life in hope that actual correction can occur. The death penalty should not be an option for dealing with criminals and must be banned so we can better ourselves as a nation and move forward in this country.